Sutra Action Law Battle. There will always be a place for your own battle. Even while hoping for outside help, always prepare for your own fight. A person's life is woven with great and small battles in grand history as well as on a personal level, in society, and within oneself. We are only given fate in battle, wrote Osip Mandelstam. The battle is where the hero meets his ultimate truth. Progress is impossible without struggle, and each victory opens new horizons, elevating a person to a higher orbit. Living simultaneously in two worlds, society and their inner world, a person strives to affirm the dignity of their personality. And no matter how strong the ties that bind people into a whole, the ability and willingness to achieve personal victory through the exercise of free will have always been powerful. Even in ancient times, when a person relied more on the support of the family, tribe, or state, the role of the hero was highly valued. "No one in the chorus will save me, / no one will shout, have mercy or finish him off," wrote Arseny Tarkovsky. This thought is also expressed in the popular wisdom, "Hope in God, but do not falter." The famous German religious figure and philosopher, founder of Protestantism, Martin Luther, asserted that our entire life is our own battle for salvation. In this battle, no one and nothing can help us, neither other people nor participation in church life, only faith in God and direct appeal to Him in our soul. In Protestantism, a model of relationships with others was formed, radically rethinking the concept of Christian virtue. No longer are good deeds toward neighbors the expression of love and mercy, but rather distancing from them. Each person must cope with their own problems, as these are God-sent trials, and by helping others, we interfere with God's plan for them. Instead of gathering strength and fighting for their own salvation and social status in this world, a person is more likely to cowardly accept someone else's help. It's easier to be a miserable sinner than to fight for one's own righteousness and success. But easy does not mean right for a Protestant or a person who unconsciously follows the ethics of Protestantism. This logic, psychology, and ethics of modern capitalist society, rooted in Protestant ideals, were fundamentally studied by the German sociologist and philosopher Max Weber in his work The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. Luther's ideas were continued by the famous 18th-century German philosopher Immanuel Kant and the equally famous 19th-century German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Kant, although not openly referencing Protestantism in his philosophical works, was a Protestant by religious belief. In the spirit of Protestantism, he asserted that every person must battle the inherent evil within their own nature, and no one will fight this battle for us. Nietzsche openly opposed Christianity but fully embraced Protestant ethical individualism, a seemingly harsh aphorism attributed to him, "Push the one who is falling." In fact, Nietzsche recommended helping to destroy what has already lost its foundation, its core. "My brothers, am I cruel? But I say, what is falling, that should you also push. Everything from today is falling and disintegrating, who would want to hold it up? But I want to push it even more. Do you know the joy of rolling stones into an abyss? These people of today, look at them as they roll into my depths. I am only a prelude to better players, my brothers. Example. Follow my example. And whoever you do not teach to fly, teach to fall faster. Just as birds push fledglings out of the nest when they are ready to fly, so must we help others to stand on their own feet. But sometimes this requires pushing them out of their cozy, familiar nest. Therefore, they know they will win in 5 cases. They win if they know when they can fight and when they cannot. They win when they know how to use both large and small forces. They win when the higher and lower ranks share the same desires. They win when they are cautious and wait for the enemy's recklessness. they win when the commander is talented, and the ruler does not interfere with him. These 5 principles are the path to knowledge of victory. Sun Tzu. If strength is lacking, bite with your teeth. In the course of ontogenesis of a living organism, it is difficult to imagine a situation where this organism could live in a state of complete calm. Life on our planet is arranged in such a way that one always has to deal with various stress factors. A state of complete calm is more of an exception rather than a rule. This state is very often and easily, almost constantly, disturbed by external and internal agents, desires, and needs. Hunger and thirst, cold and drought, fires and earthquakes, hail and floods, large predators, or hostile neighboring tribes disturbed the peace of our ancestors, causing temporary or permanent tension. Nature has instilled very powerful parental instincts in living organisms, aimed at caring for and nurturing their offspring. However, in the realities of life, when parents are busy seeking resources for their offspring, situations often arise where seemingly immature individuals have to participate in the struggle for their survival. To facilitate adaptation, nature has equipped living organisms with defense mechanisms that are activated in response to potential danger and various stress reactions. All battles are necessary in life to teach us something. Even those we lose. When you grow up, you will understand that you defended false ideas, deceived yourself, or suffered over trifles. If you become a good warrior, you will not blame yourself for these mistakes, but you will also not allow them to be repeated. Paulo Coelho. On the day of battle, the brave man does not jest. The biological essence of the stress response is extremely important. It involves the mobilization of the body's forces and reserves to restore the disrupted homeostasis or fight the harmful influence of the environment. The stress response increases the resilience of a living system, cell, organism, in adverse conditions, ensuring survival in a hostile environment. The transition from a state of rest to stress requires some restructuring of the body, sometimes even sacrifices in the name of adaptability to changed living conditions. From a physiological point of view, periodic stresses, of course, not severe or traumatic, are necessary for every living being, as they keep the body in an active state, training and improving the work of all organs and systems: cardiovascular, nervous, endocrine, immune, respiratory. This influence enhances their resistance, endurance, and performance. Calmness is a pleasant but dangerous state. Organs that do not work or work minimally, heart, lungs, muscles, glands, immune organs, decrease, weaken, and reduce their performance. In a state of calmness, this is not noticeable, but when faced with difficulties or threats, the body's weakness and defenselessness become apparent. Thus, periodic stress, weak and moderate, not too prolonged, keeps the organs and systems of our body in an active state and functioning, trains them, and maintains constant readiness, gradually increasing their power. Such stresses are not only not dangerous but even beneficial and necessary for the organism. In the course of evolution, the influence of various stresses became the driving factor that contributed to the development and improvement of living organisms. As a result of complex morphological changes in the structure of the organism, modern humans acquired a wide range of adaptive capabilities aimed at eliminating various stress factors. However, the degree of expression of these capabilities, i.e., their strength, depends on the organism's prior readiness and hardiness. In the life of every person, as well as other representatives of the animal world, there will sooner or later be a place for their own battle. It is essential not to rely solely on outside help. Encountering danger is a necessary condition for the development and progress of living beings. By developing their own adaptive capabilities, one must always remain ready for their own battle. War is the father of all things. It has made some gods, others men. Some slaves, others free. Heraclitus of Ephesus. Battle is a broad concept. It is both a psychological and often even a spiritual phenomenon, and it doesn't necessarily imply, as in the past, a clash on an open field where armies meet. The result of a battle with circumstances can even be temporary defeat, difficulties, illness, exile, oblivion. But in any case, a battle is the evoked personal courage of overcoming. Heraclitus of Ephesus once said, "War is the father of all things. It has made some gods, others men. Some slaves, others free." In the life of every person, there is this ultimate battle where the most cherished, final questions of their destiny are resolved once and for all. For example, Rembrandt his battle with poverty and lonely old age, Beethoven with progressive deafness, Van Gogh with the metaphysical question of the yellow color, Goya with deafness and heartache over the war in his native Spain, Andrei Tarkovsky with the fate of an outcast director, Joseph Brodsky with the fate of an exiled poet. And each of them won this war, which they did not provoke. The more battles I lose, the more certain I am to win the war. Jean-Paul Sartre. The best fighter is the one who wins without fighting. Confucius. Success and career depend on the individual, writes Denny Rubin, a career and leadership expert. If a person waits for help from others, they may wait a very long time. Rubin lists several reasons why one should rely on oneself rather than count on the help of others. People care about you, but only to a certain extent. In today's society, everyone is very busy. Friends, family, and colleagues may listen to your sad story, but they won't solve your problems for you. Moreover, it's utterly selfish to forget that these people have their own concerns and troubles. As a person grows older, they are less controlled. Statistics show that no one forces people over 22 to fulfill their duties at work or to complete tasks. It is assumed that a person understands that they must do it well. When circumstances pressure you and life becomes very difficult, only you truly feel the severity of the situation and can start finding a way out. Others may not always understand exactly how you feel. It can be tempting to shift responsibility onto someone else. However, when you perform a responsible task yourself, you know exactly when it is fully and properly completed. You can listen to career or life advice from specialists, but you must realize that you are responsible for implementing that advice. Words without action remain just words. The responsibility for acting on the advice lies with you. In today's world, competition is fierce. But you must acknowledge that you need to overcome yourself. Every day, you need to move forward and strive to be better. This approach applies not only to professional life but to all other spheres of human life. Writer Paul Hudson argues that a person needs to understand as soon as possible that they cannot and should not depend on others. Friends play an essential role in our lives, they love us. Friendship is a wonderful thing, but we cannot guarantee friends will be there in every situation. They, too, are not always ready to sacrifice for us. In any case, we must be prepared for the possibility that our friends may let us down. According to statistics cited by Hudson, even the best of friends will fail us at least once during the course of our friendship. People cannot always make the right decisions. We are often fearful or mistaken, and frequently, our personal priorities outweigh those of others. We are all egocentric beings. In our world, each person is the center of their own universe. Our consciousness naturally focuses on ourselves. However, this doesn't mean people can't shift their focus to someone else, it just requires strong willpower. Sometimes people are simply not ready to do this, for example, due to feelings of envy or competition. In any case, relying on oneself is the best decision. The ability to stand confidently on your own 2 feet without help allows us to endure situations when everything goes wrong and no one is there to support us. Of course, this doesn't mean we shouldn't ask for help. But we must take responsibility for our own lives and not blame friends and family. Shifting responsibility onto others can ruin not only our relationships but our entire lives. You can't build your reality with someone else's hands. It's normal to share your problems and ask for support during difficult times. However, we must remember that sooner or later, a time will come when an important decision is required from us, and we will need to take responsibility for it. You must fight the enemy, not just resent him. The idea of personal heroism, where an individual takes on the burden of responsibility at a critical moment, runs throughout the history of Judaism. Consider the story of Moses, who liberated the Jews from Egyptian captivity, or David, who defeated Goliath in an uneven fight, leading to a turning point in the war with the Philistines. It's worth noting that David, the future king of Israel, was not originally a professional soldier nor part of the elite of the Israeli kingdom. He was a shepherd tending his father's sheep, and he was accepted into King Saul's court for his skill in playing the harp. 1 Samuel 16:17-23. The transition from being an ordinary person to a hero is also vividly demonstrated in the story of the widow Judith. In the 6th century BCE, the Assyrian general Holofernes, following the orders of King Nebuchadnezzar, besieged the large Jewish city of Bethulia, threatening to destroy its inhabitants if they resisted. After a month of siege, the people of Bethulia despaired, doubting they could defend the city against the numerous enemies. However, the brave, beautiful, wise, and righteous widow Judith persuaded the elders to send her on a secret mission to the Assyrian camp. Entering the enemy camp and convincing Holofernes that she possessed the gift of prophecy, Judith gained his trust. The general, smitten with love, tried to win her favor. During a feast, Judith intoxicated Holofernes with wine, decapitated him, and managed to return to the city. When the people of besieged Bethulia displayed this trophy to the Assyrians, they fled in panic and terror from the city walls. Judith became famous and lived a righteous and blessed life until the age of 105. Interestingly, the Book of Judith, Yehudit in Jewish tradition, is a rare example of an apocryphal text that, despite not becoming part of the Tanakh canon, firmly entered the folklore and tradition of the Jewish people, even though Jewish religious authorities do not recognize this text as divinely inspired or even historically valuable. The path to glory is through battle, not just complaint. The idea of personal heroism, where an individual takes on the burden of responsibility at a critical moment, runs throughout the history of Judaism. Consider the story of Moses, who liberated the Jews from Egyptian captivity, or David, who defeated Goliath in an uneven fight, leading to a turning point in the war with the Philistines. It's worth noting that David, the future king of Israel, was not originally a professional soldier nor part of the elite of the Israeli kingdom. He was a shepherd tending his father's sheep, and he was accepted into King Saul's court for his skill in playing the harp. 1 Samuel 16:17-23. The transition from being an ordinary person to a hero is also vividly demonstrated in the story of the widow Judith. In the 6th century BCE, the Assyrian general Holofernes, following the orders of King Nebuchadnezzar, besieged the large Jewish city of Bethulia, threatening to destroy its inhabitants if they resisted. After a month of siege, the people of Bethulia despaired, doubting they could defend the city against the numerous enemies. However, the brave, beautiful, wise, and righteous widow Judith persuaded the elders to send her on a secret mission to the Assyrian camp. Entering the enemy camp and convincing Holofernes that she possessed the gift of prophecy, Judith gained his trust. The general, smitten with love, tried to win her favor. During a feast, Judith intoxicated Holofernes with wine, decapitated him, and managed to return to the city. When the people of besieged Bethulia displayed this trophy to the Assyrians, they fled in panic and terror from the city walls. Judith became famous and lived a righteous and blessed life until the age of 105. Interestingly, the Book of Judith, Yehudit in Jewish tradition, is a rare example of an apocryphal text that, despite not becoming part of the Tanakh canon, firmly entered the folklore and tradition of the Jewish people, even though Jewish religious authorities do not recognize this text as divinely inspired or even historically valuable. I would rather die in battle, charging on horseback into the enemy ranks, than to simply die in my bed, Tokunaga Kichizaemon reportedly said, reflecting on his old age and longing for a heroic death, as captured in the Bushido Code. From the early days, Christians have been given a clear directive that they will have to fight for good in this world, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Ephesians 6:12. The word struggle in Christian literature in Russian is a translation of the words battle, conflict, war. To achieve your desired goal, spiritual perfection, you must constantly battle with yourself and with everything that fuels and sustains your desires. Prepare yourself for this struggle and this war, knowing that the crown, the achievement of your desired goal, will not be given to anyone but the valiant warriors and fighters. However, as difficult as this battle is, since when you enter a battle with yourself, you find the enemy within, the victory is all the more glorious and, above all, more pleasing to God. 310. Go forth into this battle, without hesitation. If disturbing thoughts come to mind about the fury and relentless malice that your enemies the demons hold against you, and about the vast number of their legions, then, on the other hand, consider the boundless power of God, His love for you, and the incomparably greater number of heavenly angels and the prayers of the saints. 311. In Islam, jihad, the sacred struggle for faith, is sometimes referred to as the sixth, an additional, pillar of faith, alongside Shahada, the testimony of faith in the one God and the prophetic mission of Muhammad, Salah, the 5 daily prayers, Psalm, fasting during the month of Ramadan, Zakat, mandatory alms for charitable causes, and Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. It is not widely known that out of the 4 types of jihad typically identified by Muslim theologians, only one involves armed struggle for the faith. The other 3 are devoted to personal improvement and efforts to better society. Firstly, there's jihad against one's own vices, known as the Greater Jihad. When the Prophet Muhammad returned from the military campaign of Tabuk, he said, "We have returned from the lesser jihad to engage in the greater jihad." Then there is jihad through knowledge, missionary work. And finally, there is jihad through material means, primarily charity. The main battle in Islam is considered to be the final eschatological battle against the Antichrist, expected at the dawn of time. As stated in one hadith, Muslims will not be alone in this battle, the Almighty Himself will come to their aid. Only righteous Muslims, those who believed in the signs of the Creator, observed His law, and had deep faith, Iman, will find Allah's protection. Therefore, every believer must prepare for the main battle throughout their life by overcoming their own passions, doubts, evil thoughts, and deeds. The Hadith says, "The wise person is the one who, not following his desires and passions, prepares for what awaits him after death." A similar approach, by the way, is present in Buddhism. If someone in battle were to conquer 1,000 men 1,000 times, and another were to conquer just one himself, this latter one would be the greatest conqueror in the battle, said Buddha. Thus, in any spiritually rich, developed religion, the great role of personal effort, personal qualities, and personal contribution of the believer in the struggle for religious ideals is recognized. More than anything, religious discourse implies a personal battlefield for each believer. One of the fundamental principles of American society, built on the foundation of Protestantism, can be formulated as follows: you can count on the country to help you, and the entire state machinery, the army, police, ambulance, etc. will come to your aid, and they definitely will. But before that, there will necessarily be a moment of your own personal battle. This idea is reflected in American cinema. Every movie hero faces a situation of personal confrontation with evil. Think of Schwarzenegger, who in nearly every movie emerges victorious over villains threatening humanity, and at that moment, a helicopter arrives, and reinforcements come. The helicopters will arrive, the army will come, family will support, the country will help, but there must be a moment of personal, individual battle. And Americans are prepared for such a development from childhood. Every plan is good before the battle, every plan is bad after the battle. Vladislav Gzhezhik. Glorious is the battle fought by brave warriors. Nowadays, there is much discussion about the Russian middle class, its role in modern society, how to create it, whether it should be created, or maybe it already exists, and we just don't notice it, what characterizes it. A few years ago, Sberbank launched a project aimed at helping to create a middle class. A package of documents was prepared that allowed one to open and launch their own business project in 15 minutes, with a real business plan, necessary databases and contacts, a loan issued, and recommendations for further development. Essentially, one needed to walk into a bank branch with a passport, and 15 minutes later, they were an owner. The bank planned to open 500,000 such companies, but in reality, it turned out to be 10 times less. Everyone wants to earn a decent salary, and later a pension, to give their children a good education, to help their parents, but few are ready to do anything about it and take responsibility for their own destiny. And this responsibility for one's own fate is a characteristic of American Protestant thinking, which begins with the very concept of my personal battle in the American ideology. It turns out that the middle class is primarily a mental characteristic. It is characterized by a strong motivation for achievement and the special role of everything related to professional activity, readiness, and need for self-development, an increased sense of personal responsibility for one's fate, and an elevated role of freedom in the value system in general, and individual freedom in particular. Everything the middle class representative has is perceived as their strength, which allows them to work more and better, achieve more, and ultimately win. It is important to understand that we create our own future. Each of us will have our own personal battle. Our life is in our hands. You can win a battle but lose the war. You can win the war but lose the campaign. You can win the campaign but lose the war. Napoleon Bonaparte. A steadfast battle is better than a shaky prayer.